In this chapter of the project, we will be going through how to make the player character for our game. The player is a kid called Ethan who's gotten lost on a tour of the Unity Labs facility and ended up in one of our simulation environments. The first step is to drag the model into the scene. You'll find it in the models folder and it's called char_Ethan. Drag this into the hierarchy now. Then with your mouse over the scene view, press F to focus on it. We want the player's position to be just left of the origin, so set his starting position to -2.500. Now we need to make sure that he's tagged as player. From the tag drop down at the top of the inspector, choose player. The player model has multiple parts. It also has multiple skinned mesh renderers. Open the char_Ethan hierarchy to find them. We need to make sure that each of the board, body, glasses and harness are using light probes so that they're affected by dynamic light. Highlight them all now, and in the skinned mesh renderer, check the box for Use Light Probes. One of the most important parts of the player are the controls. Let's take a look at the Input Manager to find out what they are. They can be found via Edit, Project Settings, Input. The horizontal and vertical axes are almost the same as the defaults that are in each Unity project. The only change that we've made is that Snap is unchecked. This means that if the opposite buttons on the same axis are pressed, the axis won't snap to 0. We need a few more inputs for our player to perform all the necessary actions. Firstly, we need a button that the user can hold down to sneak instead of running. We've used the left shift key, but since in our scripts we will be using get button instead of get key, we can change it to whatever we'd like without editing the scripts. We simply need to reference the name sneak. Next, we'll need a button that the player can use to attract the attention of the guards. We've used the X key. For our switches, we've used Z. Now let's move on to adding components to the player. The Ethan model has an animator component by default, and the settings are as we want them. We'll be creating an animator controller for this later. The player needs to collide with obstructions in the level, so let's give him a capsule collider. Go to Add Component, Physics, Capsule Collider. Change the capsule collider center to 0, 1, 0. Change the radius to 0.4. Set the height to 2. Since the player will have a moving collider, it needs a rigid body component. Click Add Component and choose Physics, Rigid Body. We will be setting the rotation rather than using forces to turn, and since we don't want the player to turn otherwise, we should freeze the rotation in all axes. Under Constraints, check the boxes for X, Y, and Z. We also don't want the player to get knocked into the air on collisions, so we'll constrain his vertical movement too. Check the Y-axis of freeze position. We want the player to make footstep sounds when running, so we'll need an audio source component, and we can put the footsteps clip into that. We don't want the sound to play on awake, but we do want it to loop. Go to Add Component, Audio, Audio Source, uncheck Play on Awake, and check Loop. We don't want footsteps to be too intrusive, so we'll turn the volume down to 0.1. And finally, we'll assign the clip. In the audio folder, drag and drop player_footsteps onto the audio clip property. For this style of game, the camera is going to be a fair distance away from the player. Because by default the audio listener is on the camera in Unity, this will not suit our game, as we need the point at which we hear to be based on the player's position, rather than the position of the camera. As such, we are going to put our audio listener on the player and remove it from the camera. Select camera_main and click the cog to the right of the audio listener component and choose Remove Component. Then reselect Ethan, and at the bottom, click the Add Component button and choose Audio, Audio Listener. That's our player character set up and ready to have input and animation applied to him. Let's get started with the next assignment, in which we will create the animator controller asset. Save your scene and save your project now.